Operation Northwoods. In 1962, the Pentagon proposed bombing American cities, shooting U.S. citizens, and sinking refugee boats, then blaming it all on Cuba to start a war. This wasn't a conspiracy theory. It was a signed government document. After the Bay of Pigs disaster, the Joint Chiefs of Staff were desperate to invade Cuba, but they needed the American public to demand it. So General Lyman Lemnitzer drafted Operation Northwoods, a plan for the U.S. government to terrorize its own people. The proposals were shocking. Stage a communist Cuban terror campaign in Miami and Washington. Sink boats carrying Cuban refugees, hijack commercial airplanes, blow up a U.S. ship in Guantanamo Bay, and publish fake casualty lists to trigger a helpful wave of national indignation. They even considered blaming Cuba if astronaut John Glenn's rocket exploded during launch, manufacturing fake evidence of Cuban sabotage. Every single member of the Joint Chiefs signed off. Lemnitzer sent it to Defense Secretary Robert McNamara for approval, but President Kennedy said no. Within months, Kennedy removed Lemnitzer as chairman. The military saw Kennedy as soft on Cuba. The documents were buried and classified for 40 years. But in 1997, the files were finally declassified. The American public learned that their own military had formally proposed murdering American citizens as a pretext for war. Kennedy rejected Northwoods in March 1962 and was assassinated 20 months later. Gulf of Tonkin. On August 4, 1964, the U.S. Navy reported that North Vietnamese boats had attacked 2 American destroyers in the Gulf of Tonkin. Congress authorized war. 58,000 Americans died in Vietnam. The attack never actually happened. 2 days earlier, there had been a real skirmish. The USS Maddox exchanged fire with North Vietnamese patrol boats. But on August 4th, the attack was nothing but radar ghosts and jittery sonar operators. The seas were rough, the equipment was glitchy, and the crew was shooting at waves. Commander James Stockdale flew overhead that night, but he saw nothing. Our destroyers were just shooting at phantom targets, he later said. There was nothing there but black water and American firepower. Captain John Herrick, commanding the Maddox, sent a flash message to Washington. Freak weather effects on radar and overeager sonarmen may have accounted for many reports. No actual visual sightings. Suggest complete evaluation before any further action. But Washington ignored him. President Johnson went on national television that same night, announcing unprovoked attacks and demanding retaliation. Congress passed the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution with only 2 dissenting votes. Johnson signed it, privately joking it was like Grandma's nightshirt. It covers everything. Declassified NSA documents later confirmed. Intelligence was deliberately altered to support the attack narrative. Evidence that contradicted it was buried. Johnson knew the truth. He later admitted privately, hell, those damn stupid sailors were just shooting at flying fish. And with that, 58,000 Americans never came home. COINTELPRO. For 15 years, the FBI ran a secret war against American citizens. They didn't just spy on civil rights leaders, they tried to destroy them. The Bureau sent Martin Luther King Jr. a letter urging him to kill himself. COINTELPRO, the counterintelligence program, was FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover's weapon against anyone he considered a threat. The targets were civil rights activists, Black Panthers, anti-war protesters, feminists, and even Albert Einstein. The goal, in Hoover's own words, was to expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, or otherwise neutralize. After King's I Have a Dream speech, Hoover labeled him the most dangerous Negro in America. FBI agents bugged his hotel rooms, recorded his affairs, and mailed him the tapes with an anonymous letter. There is only one way out for you. You better take it before your filthy, fraudulent self is bared to the nation. King understood. They wanted him dead. The FBI didn't stop at intimidation. They forged letters to spark violence between black groups. They fed false information to police. In 1969, Chicago police raided Black Panther leader Fred Hampton's apartment at 4 a.m., using floor plans provided by an FBI informant who had drugged Hampton that night. Hampton was shot in his bed. He was 21. The program stayed secret until 1971, when activists broke into an FBI office during the Ali Frazier fight and stole the files. The documents shocked America. The FBI apologized in 1974, but no one went to prison. Iran-Contra affair. The Reagan administration sold weapons to Iran, a country it publicly called a terrorist state, then used the profits to fund rebels in Nicaragua. Congress had explicitly banned both. When caught, they shredded the evidence. The Contras were Nicaraguan guerrillas fighting the leftist Sandinista government. Reagan called them the moral equivalent of our founding fathers. Congress disagreed and passed the Boland Amendment, making it illegal to fund them. Reagan told his National Security Council to keep the Contras alive anyway, body and soul. Meanwhile, Hezbollah was holding 7 American hostages in Lebanon. Reagan's team hatched a plan: sell missiles to Iran, which backed Hezbollah, use Iran's influence to free the hostages, and funnel the profits to the Contras. One illegal operation would finance another. Over 1,500 missiles went to Iran. 3 hostages were released, and 3 more were taken. When a Lebanese magazine exposed the scheme in November 1986, Reagan went on national television and denied everything. A week later, he admitted the arms sales but insisted it wasn't arms for hostages. Attorney General Edwin Meese then revealed the Contra connection. Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North, the operations architect, shredded so many documents he jammed the White House shredder. His secretary smuggled classified papers out in her boots and dress. 14 officials were charged. Most were pardoned by George Bush, who had been vice president during the scandal. Nobody served significant prison time. Pat Tillman. Pat Tillman walked away from a $3.6 million NFL contract to fight in Afghanistan after 9/11. When he was killed, the Army told America he died charging enemy fire. They gave him a Silver Star. They made him a hero, but it was all a lie. Tillman was killed by his own men. Friendly fire in a confused firefight. The Army knew within 24 hours. They burned his uniform and body armor. They burned his diary. They ordered his platoon mates to stay silent. Even his brother Kevin, who was in the same unit but hadn't witnessed the shooting. Then they staged a funeral. A Navy SEAL friend delivered a eulogy based on a script the military gave him an hour before, a fictional account of Tillman's heroic death fighting the enemy. The family didn't learn the truth until 5 weeks later, when a reporter called asking for comment. Why the cover-up? Because Tillman had become a problem. He called the Iraq War so incredibly illegal. He'd arranged to meet Noam Chomsky after returning home to discuss going public against the war. The Army's poster boy was about to become its loudest critic. The lies came from the top. Generals knew. Documents were doctored. When investigators pushed for a murder inquiry, Army officers shut it down, then sent each other congratulatory emails. 4 investigations, 9 officers recommended for discipline, and 0 prosecutions. Tillman's mother spent 20 years fighting for the truth, and the Army never even apologized. Edward Snowden. In 2013, a 29-year-old NSA contractor named Edward Snowden leaked the largest trove of classified documents in American history. They revealed that the U.S. government was spying on everyone. The NSA had built a global surveillance machine. PRISM gave the agency direct access to servers at Google, Facebook, Apple, Microsoft, and Yahoo, collecting emails, chats, photos, and videos. XKeyscore let analysts search through virtually anything anyone did online. The agency was collecting metadata on every phone call made in America, tracking who called whom, when, and for how long. They weren't just watching terrorists. The NSA monitored 35 world leaders, including German Chancellor Angela Merkel. They spied on the United Nations, the European Union, and even their own allies. One program tracked the location of hundreds of millions of cell phones daily. Another cracked the encryption protecting banking and medical records. When asked directly by Congress whether the NSA collected data on millions of Americans, Director of National Intelligence James Clapper said, "No, it was a lie, under oath, to the people's elected representatives." The government's response to Snowden's revelations was not reform, it was prosecution. He was charged under the Espionage Act and fled to Russia, where he remains. A federal court later ruled the program illegal. It was then shut down, and no one else was charged. These are just 7 stories. But there are hundreds more. They weren't exposed by governments. They were exposed by whistleblowers, journalists, and citizens who refused to look away.